Hi, this is Jean. This is my DocuMe life story. I was born Esteline, South Dakota, May 23rd, 1937. Um, I have no idea what Esteline looks like. I lived in, well, my mother was native South Dakota, so we moved all over. And my dad lived in Lemon, South Dakota, and so we ended up in Dickinson, North Dakota, and I have no idea why either. But that's where we were till I was in the third grade. I have three sisters and two brothers. Well, no, well, I didn't know everybody, but the older two were really responsible and perfect. And then the younger two were really spoiled. And then there was us in the middle, my sister Janet and me. And she was crazy and mean and nasty. So I pretty much lived, did what I wanted, and it didn't always please everybody, but I wasn't a bad person. I just annoyed. I think I took care of myself. I had friends all over the neighborhood. I talked to everybody. I just didn't need to talk. I didn't need to communicate with my family, my brothers and sisters. My mother was absolutely wonderful, and I was her best friend, and she was my best friend. Now you're gonna make me cry. She just was. She sang to me. She answered my questions. She understood me. She's the only one in the whole family that understood me. The rest of them I annoyed. My dad had a really rich childhood. He was a spoiled child. He gambled and he drank, but he was a genius. And my mother took care. She saw something in him, and he was wonderful, but he wasn't a cuddly dad. There you go, Pumpkin. He had friends. He was a rich kid in his towns. And do you want me to keep going? When Pearl Harbor was bombed, I can still remember Franklin Roosevelt saying they lived in infamy. My dad, with 6 kids, joined the Army. He was 39 years old. And I think my mother had something to do with it. And when he joined the Army, she called the Army and says, get us out of South Dakota, because she didn't want him coming back to his friends. That's really personal, but my family knows that. And she moved us on a train, the Empire Builder from Chicago. It came from Chicago to Portland. We got on in North Dakota or South Dakota, wherever, and she brought 6 kids to Vanport, Oregon. I enjoy life. I don't complain about stuff. I just deal with it because I've seen bad stuff, and I'm grateful. There's always somebody that's got it worse. A lot of people. And we got to Vanport. The Salvation Army, the Red Cross were great. We got Army blankets. They were wool, scratchy, but they were warm and wool. And until the war was over. I remember on the train, though, I was between 2nd and 3rd grade. There was a lot of Army people on the train, and I kept looking at one of them to see if that was my dad. Because they all look alike until you look at their face, I didn't understand what we were doing. I don't know if my older brother and sister might have, but they never told. My brother and I both would like to ask Mom how she got us. She wanted to go to San Francisco, but they were full. It's better than Portland, I guess. We got Vanport, and Vanport was wonderful. And the thing is, we were not socialized. We came from South Dakota. We'd never seen anything but South Dakota people. But Vanport was full of everything, and it was wonderful. They were kind. They all watched out for you. Poor people share. If they get a bag of potatoes, they give you half of it. And Vanport was wonderful. I loved it until I got sick. I had rheumatic fever in the 4th grade. I don't think it was, my mother was really scared. There's Kaiser Hospital started in Vanport. Kaiser built Vanport. And he did a great job, but I can tell you all about that some other day because you might not want to hear all that. But I was diagnosed with rheumatic fever. I didn't know what it was, but they told my mother I was a ticking time bomb, and they took me out of school and they told her not to let me go outside. That changed my life. I lived in well, by then my dad was back from the Army. My mother and dad smoked. We were in a house where they both smoked with the doors closed with a sick kid. Now, they didn't do it on purpose. We didn't know about cigarette smoke. And let me tell you, I've never wanted to be inside since that changed my life. I hate the inside. I'd rather be out in the rain than in a house. I missed a year of school. I had the kindest neighbors. Poor people are kind. They brought all their fireworks down on the 4th of July so I could see them out my window. I'll never forget that. Oh, crap. Okay, you want to read mine? Anyway, I got over it. I had a heart murmur, but that didn't stop me from... The doctor told my dad she can be normal now. And my dad said to me, "You've never been normal." And that was a compliment. So anyway, and then the flood came, and we moved to Kellogg Park, which is in Milwaukee, which is government housing. And we got Christmas presents from the Salvation Army. But I loved it. There were kids all over the place. You just look out the window and see kids, and I got a best friend named Annette, and she had a dog named Sarge, and I had a dog named Tootsie, and we'd go on picnics with our dog. We'd eat them. We'd have 5 flavors of dog food. Her and I would eat the dog food except for the charcoal. I mean, it was a great childhood. It was a great childhood. The day before, we had one bicycle. It was a Montgomery Ward's Hawthorne, and I went for a bike ride, and I had my sister on the back. She sat on the seat, and I pumped. We were gone all day. We went clear around Portland Meadows. We were way away from where we were adventuring. My sister had no choice. She was sitting on the seat, and I was pedaling. I remember going around the racetrack and hearing the horses, and I thought, I'm really long ways from home. And we went home. I got in trouble, and my mother grounded me the next day. Well, the next day was the flood. Good thing I was grounded, because who knows where I would have been, because I rode that bike and wandered it was a great place to live. And the engineers put a note on our door that morning. I remember this well, saying, "You're not in any danger. The dike is holding." We were looking at the dike up at the Columbia River by Swift. And my mom and dad said, "There's an empty apartment upstairs. Let's take some stuff up there just in case." And they did. They took my fish, and they took, my kids don't know about this. They took my tonsils. When I had my tonsils out, I told the doctor I wanted them. So he put them in a glass of formaldehyde, and I think that's what it was, and I had them on the shelf. So they took my tonsils upstairs too. And my tonsils made it through the flood, because our house just turned. We got to go back and get stuff. But anyway, then we looked. My brother came home from the movie, and he said, "They told us to leave because the dike broke." And so we looked out the window, and I could see the water rolling across this big field. And my mother says, "Run." And my mother was quite heavy, and she wanted us to go without her. That wasn't going to happen. We loved our mother. And my little brother had marbles in his pocket, and he was throwing marbles out of his pocket. And we ran, and the Army was there with trucks. And they helped us in, and my mother apologized for being fat. I mean, I can remember this like it was yesterday. And we got in, and the trucks had the high sides, and so I couldn't see out, and I got my older brother to lift me up so I could look out. I was the only one that could see out. I watched people drown. I watched people running in the water. The water rolled, taking them down, and I was saying, "There goes another one. There goes another one." And that to this day, more people drown than they ever said. I knew, because I saw more people drown than they said. And my mother says, get her down from there. I can remember that like it was yesterday, too. And then the truck drove us up on the dike road, and we got out of the truck and on high water and watched it go. I'll tell you, we had a family, we had 6 kids, and my mom and dad, and people took people in, people from Portland. There was a family that took us in, 8 people. Now that's kind. And we just stayed there till they could find another place for us. And, but Vanport, I have really good memories. They had a theater, they had grocery stores, they had libraries, schools. You didn't need to, there's a lot of black people. Portland wasn't real kind to black people at that time, but I didn't know that because I was a kid. We played. It didn't matter. I mean, if a parent came out and told you to behave yourself, you behaved yourself because it didn't matter what color anybody was. And it was a great way to grow up. And I loved to read, but I hadn't read bad stuff, and I didn't know anything bad. So I'm fine in a group of anything. Anyway, we went to there, and then they found a place for us in Kellogg Park. That's over by Milwaukee. It's not there anymore, but it was a cul-de-sac, and I don't remember how. So we were at the end because we had the biggest house because we had the most kids, so we had 3 bedrooms, I think. And the people, if they caught fish, they'd share them. If they needed a babysitter, they called. You'd babysit their kid. You didn't babysit them, you just played with them until their parents got back, you know. And nobody paid anybody, you just shared. And it was great. I was there, and we didn't own a car till we took the bus. And it was great. I could go downtown, which wouldn't put a 4th grader downtown now on a bus, but I took the bus everywhere, and I still feel comfortable. I could live in Portland right now. I still love Portland. I did gymnastics, and we did it as a young Oregonian. They had a group of gymnastics, and my best friend and I did them. And you wouldn't believe it looking at me now that I could sit on my head. I mean, I could do flips. I could walk for 2 blocks on my hands. I mean, just crazy kid stuff that you don't see that anymore. I'd like to see a kid walking down the street on their hands. I'd go out and give them some money for that. Well, it must have been 8th grade. We got a 48 Plymouth, and for fun, we'd go down on McLaughlin Boulevard and go 50 miles an hour so the red light would come on, telling you you're going too fast, you know. That was fun. But other than that, no, we didn't. We didn't go to the beach until I can't remember my first trip to the beach, but my grandma died when I was in high school. In South Dakota died, and my mother inherited $6,000, I think, and she bought a beach house at Lincoln City. $6,000, can you believe that? And my sister still lives there. So we go to her beach house. But that wasn't until I was out of high school, I think, or I had a boyfriend or something, you know. My mother was really proud of me. We were just best friends, and I don't know why. She'd sing me songs, and I'm not going to sing the song because I would cry. But we just understood each other. And I didn't know how much till I got older, but I remember when I got out of high school, and I did really well in high school. And even my English teacher, I worked for the paper, on the high school paper too. I sold ads, and I was great at that. I just love life. And my mother begged me to go to college. She says, Jean, I'll scrub floors. I'll do anything if you'll just go to college. And I'm sorry. I didn't do that. And my dad came up to me and says, I can get you into Reed College. And I thought, God, I don't think I can get into Reed College. And I thought, so they must have thought I was okay. They did. They always treated me great. Well, I had this boyfriend. I got married. Is that what you want to hear? My mother says, please don't, and I did. I love kids. I wanted to have a whole bunch of kids. And because I just love kids. I lived in Kellogg, when we lived in Kellogg Park, all the kids, I taught them, I went to tumbling and gymnastics. And then when I came home, they all met me in my front yard, and I teach them all tumbling and how to turn cartwheels and things. And here's my family. And so I just love kids. I had a funny vision how much fun it would be having kids. And I did enjoy it. I love my kids, and I had 6 of them. And I was a really good mom. I mean, I not only had my kids, I had neighbor kids that came over. I have neighbor kids that came over with my kids. I had a Volkswagen bus. I could get 15 kids in there, and I had 15 kids in there almost every time I went somewhere. We went to Snow Bunny Lodge. Me with 15 kids, no seat belts. I mean, people didn't sue you then if you banged your kid up a little bit, but I didn't bang anybody's kid up. And a parent usually went with me too. But I have those kids that lived by me still call me on my birthday. One of them said to me the other day, you hugged me more than my mother ever did. I meant something to them. And they meant a lot to me. And I sewed, so if I made dresses, I made every one of the girls a dress that matched or something. I love being a mother, and I love being around kids. And I don't know if I can keep talking. Valerie, David, John, Greg, Mike, and Karen. Did I leave somebody out? Valerie, David, John, Greg, Mike, and Karen. 6, yeah. Well, Valerie, she was the oldest, and I didn't expect the oldest to take care of the youngest. But they all took care of each other, except the one that didn't like any of them, and he didn't care. Nobody liked John. And Mike was a daredevil. Dave, the second one, was my hand. He took care of me. I mean, he thought it was his duty to take care of me. He didn't miss a day of school till the 5th grade. And I remember having old cars, and if I was going somewhere, he'd say, maybe I should go with you in case you have trouble. I mean, he was just a kid. He was responsible. Mike was crazy. If I heard somebody yelling Geronimo, I ran to see what Mike was doing. He might be hanging from a tree with a rope around his neck like this, swinging back and forth. And I didn't lose one. So.
That's awesome.
And I had a big yard, and I had always had neighbor kids in there too. And it was great. I was in my best, and I hung clothes out. I was happy to hang diapers out because then you could be outside. And I mowed the lawn because then you could be outside. And so I worked my butt off for them. But those kids were great too. They were great helpers. Well, I can tell you one time I was taking the clothes down, I shook them, and an earwig went down my dress, and my dress came off real fast out in the backyard. And we had neighbors all, I mean, nobody was watching, but let me tell you, earwig will get your dress off real fast. I don't want to embarrass my kid. They didn't do anything embarrassing. Well, they built boats in the pond in the front yard, or the front road, which was a road with ponds, and some people got flat tires because of their nails were sticking up from their boats, but that wasn't a big deal either. And I was a room mother. I was PTA president. I was whatever the little girls, Girl Scouts. What do they call those? Anyway, I had Girl Scouts. I taught them how to change a diaper because I had a baby, so I passed the baby around and they learned how to change diapers. I'm sure that parents were thrilled when they went home and said that. It was just a good time. criticize you. They were grateful when you were good to their kids. I thought, I can always have one more. I couldn't have any more after the sixth one. I had a hysterectomy. And so I called Children's Services and asked if I could be a foster. And they said, well, the limit is 6 children in a house. And they came out and talked to me and said, we're going to make an exception in your case. And I had some foster kids too. Plus, Marylhurst College had an orphanage. And I don't know how I found them, but I called them. So when we went to the beach to my mother's house in the car, in the Volkswagen with all the kids, we stop at Marylhurst, and they'd have one kid picked out to go to the beach with us. They were all girls, like teenagers or something. And every time we went to the beach, we stop at Marylhurst and pick up one. I remember the nuns saying they all want to go, but we're going to let this one go this week, and then we're going to let that. And I love that. That makes me sound so wonderful, and I wasn't that wonderful. Maybe I was. You know, I don't know if I was wonderful, but that's just what I did because I loved it. And then I had foster kids. I've always had kids in my head. So, grandkids are, you know, they open up a place in your heart you didn't even know you had. You've got kids, you have no idea. You love them so much, you think you couldn't love anything any more than that, and then here comes a grandkid. I love them all, and so I don't want to miss a name. Usually I go by, Valerie had Jeff and Amy. David had Jennifer and David. I did miss David. And John has Sarah and Julie. And Greg had Josh and Jacob and Taylor. And then Mike had Stephen and Jacqueline. And Karen had Jerry and Morgan and Gus. You know, people think you should have kids when you're young. I was a better grandma than I was a mother, I think. I really loved being a grandma. And a lot of them stayed with me. I had so many kids because everybody trusted me. I mean, neighbors trusted me. But I finally opened up a daycare. That was after I'd done a lot of other things. But I finally had a daycare in my home because I'm taking care of kids, and I was babysitting my own kids, so I just had a daycare, and it was great. I got kids that were kicked out of daycare, and they did great at my house. So, well, I had worked for the parks, and that's another long story. But anyway, but my husband worked for the parks, and he transferred to La Pine, and I get bored. I mean, I like to keep busy, and I have a friend who had a Sears catalog store. And I went to La Pine, and La Pine had a Sears catalog store. And I thought, but they don't have a Montgomery Ward's. Because that's when Montgomery Ward's and Sears were competitive. They both had catalogs. You guys don't remember Christmas catalogs, do you? We'd pick something out. Anyway, so I called Montgomery Ward's. I don't know how I called. I must have dialed one. You dialed information and asked for the number. Oh my God, that was a long time ago. Yeah. I used to be a telephone operator when I was in high school because I got a job and worked part-time while I went to school. Anyway, he says, well, when the district manager's in Bend, they have a Montgomery Ward's catalog store, and I'll have him give you a call. So he called me, said he'd come see me when he got to Bend. And he didn't come, he was quite late, and he finally got there and he says, oh my God, I got lost in La Pine. We're putting a Montgomery Ward catalog store in here. He didn't realize how many people lived in La Pine. And I guess they cleared me. I mean, I must have, they don't just give those stores to anybody. I don't know what I did, but anyway, I talked him into it, I guess. And I rented a storefront. My husband and my son built counters and things. I went to school in Oakland, California. You guys know where that is. And took classes, and came home and opened my catalog store. First they said you're going to have another business with it. It's not big enough for a number one store. And so I was going to buy the fabric store, and then she backed out. And then, so we opened, and the guy from California came up for the opening, and he looked at my people, the crowd. He says, "We're making this a number one store," just like that. And he got on the phone and ordered all these appliances and stuff to fill up the store. And that was my catalog store.
How long did you run that?
I ran it for about 3 years, and then the people that owned the Western store would like to buy it, and I was ready to get out. I had grandkids living with me then, and I had foster kids. I had foster kids too, and that's where my love really was. And so I sold it to them, and then Montgomery Ward's, they went to school, and then Montgomery Ward's decided to close catalog stores. And so we would have been out of business anyway. But anyway, then I decided I'd get a real estate license. I could do that and still take care of grandkids. No, you can't. But anyway, I went to real estate school in Bend, and but I didn't. I only had 4 grandkids then. But my granddaughter in my daughter in California was due to have her baby. So after I took my real estate exam, I drove straight through to Los Angeles to be there when that baby was born. I had a good reputation, and people trusted me. So I was trustworthy. I mean, I'd proven it already. Anyway, so when I lived in Manzanita, well, the city, I lived at Lentz, and that's when I met all these wonderful kids that were my neighbors, and I was PTA, and I was Girl Scout, and we even had Little League team. And those kids, I love those kids. They got ice cream whether they won or lost, you know. Then the state came and bought my house. I-205 freeway needed to go through there. They went through the right lane is where my house was. And we didn't have a place, so we went to the beach for the summer because there was a little house to rent. And I had my 6 kids in a 1-bedroom house all summer, and it was wonderful. I met people. You don't stay in the house, especially when you got 6 kids in a 1-bedroom house. And I just met so many people. And I met the lady that owned the house, and she liked me. She says, "Well, I got a 2-bedroom across the street." And so I bought it. It was $6,500 in Manzanita. And I don't think anybody liked Gladys except me. And she was a nice lady if you just get through the rough stuff. And she liked me, sold me the house. The people in the neighborhood liked me, and so I had kids that worked hard too. My son got a job mowing lawns, and they had a dump. You go up to the dump, and people put good stuff on one side of the dump, and the garbage was over there. Friday night, the kids would go up and shoot rats, and Saturday, I'd go up and see if there's anything good that I could use, and it was great. And then we did build a house in Wilsonville, moved back to Wilsonville, couldn't afford it, and finally moved back to the beach. And that's where I worked hard. Well, in Wilsonville, I worked at the truck stop. I worked at Copper Kitchen as a waitress, and then I asked her if I could be a bartender because they make more money than waitresses, but I didn't know how to because I didn't drink, and I didn't know anything about bartending. And I said I'd work for free if they just teach me how to be a bartender. And I worked for free one day, and the bartender quit, and I was bartender. So all I had was nice customers that knew how to mix their own drinks. Well, they told me, and I mixed them, or a book. If they came up with a fluffy drink, I called them. I'd open up the book, and we'd stand there, and the people were so nice. They don't mind a bartender that doesn't know how to fix a drink. Especially if you give them a really good first drink, they're really helpful. And then I worked at the truck stop. That was interesting. And then, then I worked at the country club too, Taunton Country Club. And it's a Jewish country club because they weren't allowed in Waverly Country Club, and you might not want to put that, but there was discrimination all over the place. And they were wonderful to me. Some of them gave me Christmas presents, and they don't do my Christmas, but they were wonderful, kind people, and my kids caddied. I don't know how I can't remember how I got it. It was down by Garibaldi. You stood in cold water, and they came on a belt, these shrimp, and after that I didn't eat shrimp for a couple of years. It traumatized me. The shrimp coming down, and you're picking, and it's cold water, and you're doing the best you can, and all these other ladies are too. You got these wonderful. You couldn't talk to them. You just looked at the shrimp all day and grabbed them, and finally I got the hang of it, and they turned the belt up. It was like, this is hell. Picking shrimp, and when I got out of there to drive home, I couldn't even turn my head to look behind me to back up. I thought, I can't do that. That is a shrimp too far, And I thought, that night I thought, if I ever get a business, I ever get rich, I'm hiring all those shrimp picking ladies, because to do that every day I really admired them, and I really felt sorry for them. If that's all they could do is pick shrimp, there's got to be something else for you. School bus. I love the school bus. I love the kids. I don't remember how I found it. I was in Bend. This is when I was in Bend, and I took classes. And ACASA is a court-appointed advocate, special advocate for children. And in court, children or the parents are fighting, or maybe the state's fighting. And everybody's got a lawyer except the kids. Sometimes the state appoints the kids a lawyer, but the lawyers I meant, the state appointed the kids. I'll tell you about them. Anyway, you go talk to the kids, and I'm good at talking to kids. I've got a lot of experience, and I talk to the kids, and I know the case. And the whole point is to get the children back home. Unless they can't, it's not a safe home. And when we go to court, the judge will sit there, and they're both sides, and then he'll ask the kids, the appointed attorney or me, about the kids' side. Now, the appointed attorney, I'm always early. I've never been late. And I sit there, and the attorney comes and talks to me, asks me about the kid. Then we go to court, and the attorney tells the judge what I've told him, like he knows. And that pissed me off, because I think, you wouldn't know that kid if it walked past you right now, which one it was. But I didn't tell the judge that. But anyway, so I told the judge exactly what I thought. And I made much more sense than the lawyer did, who had never talked to the kid. But I cared about the mothers too, because there were mothers losing their kids, because it was so sad. It was just so sad that I helped my grandkids, and I helped neighbor kids. But some of these mothers, single mothers, the father's in jail, the grandparents are alcoholics. They have no one. They're trying to raise two little kids, this one in particular. She called Children's Services on herself, because the neighbor was supposed to watch the kids, and she had a job at Albertsons, and she would get fired if she didn't go to work, so she would never be able to pay her rent. And so she went to work and called Children's Service, said her kids were home alone. And she never got her kids back after that. And it was sad. It was so sad. I couldn't do anything, but she deserved her kids. I want to fix everything, but I can't. And there was some bad guys that lost their kids that deserved to. And the state does everything. I don't know if this is, you want to hear all this, but we sat at this big table, all the caseworkers and everybody, and the guy that should have lost his kids because I think he had killed his wife. His little kid said he did, but nobody believes a 3-year-old. But I do. I believe 3-year-olds. They don't lie. You'll find that out. And so, anyway, they went around the table telling him, well, if you do this and this, you can get your kids back. If you do this and this. But he hasn't done this. And when they got to me and asked me my opinion, I stood up and I called him what he was. I said he doesn't deserve those kids. He's a terrible, terrible person. And next thing I knew, I had police escorting me out to my car because they thought he was going to kill me. And he was a terrible person, and he did lose his kids. Oh, that's really dramatic. Maybe we ought to make a TV program out of that one. Jean the aggressor or something. Anyway, I really took it seriously, and I did a good job, and I loved the kids. And this wasn't Casa. This was one of my foster kids. She's almost 50 years old. She's 45, I think. I found when we got Facebook, I thought about her so much, and because I loved her, and I loved all of them, but she was just her and I had bonded, and I looked her up on Facebook and I found her, and I says, "Are you Chantel? Were you ever? Do you remember this?" And she was so excited. She lives in California. She flew out several years ago to see me. She loves me. She sends me flowers. I send her birthday presents. She's still in my life. Now, Casa doesn't like that because you turn in all your papers. They don't want you to. I would ask, there's a lot of problems with the courts and children's foster children. If I could win the lottery, I'd build a huge mansion for foster kids so they'd have homes that they stayed in. My mother and my father. My mother never complained. And she had a college degree. She was a teacher. And she settled for being a mother. She must have thought that was her important job. And she did it wonderfully. I have a younger brother who he said he got the best of her, but I think she managed to make every one of us kids think we were her favorite, I think. That's amazing. So, anyway, I could tell you about my brother too, but they all know about my brother too. He doesn't have any kids, but he was my mother's favorite, but he says, I'm sorry she died before I got to pay her back. And I says, you don't need to pay her back. I am a mother. I know. Well, my husband was in the National Guard, and he had to go to Fort, somewhere in Virginia, Camp Fort Lee, I think. And he got paid to do it. So I thought it'd be a great trip for the kids. We had a camper, a truck with a cab over camper, and 6 kids. So I rode to every state between here and Virginia, going north and coming south, and I asked for, they used to have just things about what to do in their state. Every one of them sent it back, and I mapped this route. We went over the north to get there, and we stopped at Yellowstone, we stopped at Mount Rushmore, we stopped everywhere I thought was good, and then we camped in Virginia for 6 weeks and went to Washington, D.C. The kids saw the Smithsonian. I'm a history person. So they went to all the Civil War places. We went south, Fredericksburg, wherever. Anyway, we went everywhere. I can't remember all of them anymore. And we met some really nice people that invited us to Alabama when we went back. And we went back through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, saw the Grand Canyon. And I might add, I took a neighbor kid with me too. So I had 7 kids and a hamburger helper. And that's what we did. And they loved it. It was great. And they remember it to this day. We saw Arlington Cemetery. I squeezed the most out of everything. I was really good at that. Plus, I gave them an information please almanac. They were in the back of the camper. I said, you got to learn every state capital before we get to the East Coast. So they had to study, and those kids knew the state capital of every state, but you got them trapped in a camper. What are you going to do? And then we lost our house. Oh, we didn't lose it. We had to sell it, and we sold it, and we bought the 2-bedroom house at the beach at that time, and went back to the beach. And the beach was Manzanita was a family close. You knew everybody at that time. It isn't like that anymore. But if you needed gravel, you knew the guy that owned the sand and gravel. And if you needed cupboards, you knew the guy that built cupboards. And then everybody went to the tavern on Friday and Saturday night and played pool and talked to their neighbors. And I remember the I had these 6 kids, and I was doing pretty good, but my husband was gone by then. He was chasing women in Portland. So it was me and the 6 kids. And everybody was kind to me. The guy that owned the tavern, I worked there. If he got in trouble, I worked there. One time he said he needed the ceiling painted. He knew I could paint the ceiling. I could do anything people can if they try and want to. And I remember, I had so many kind people in my life. I remember sitting there saying, I'll paint the ceiling. And he says, you can't paint it until 1 o'clock when we close. So I went home, took a nap, and came back at 1 o'clock. And I'll tell you, there were like 4 different people there waiting for me to help me paint the ceiling. Kind people. And then I got a job driving the school bus, which was wonderful. I love the kids, and I love driving the school bus. And I know how to get their attention. You just slam on the brakes. You know, now you don't do that because somebody's mother will sue you. But anyway, I love the kids, and we sang and we talked. And when I picked up the high school kids, I told them the new news so they knew what was going on in the world. And then that wasn't quite enough, so I worked at the gas station in between. I drove the bus in the morning and the afternoon, but then I worked at the gas station. He asked me if I wanted to work at the gas station. I said, sure. And that was when you checked the oil and washed the windows. And so I drove school bus, worked at the gas station, and then drove school bus. And then the guy from the park came by at the gas station. He says, I picked his daughter up on the school bus too, and he says, are you working everywhere? And I says, yeah, you want me at the park? And he says, yeah. And that's when I went to the park and became park ranger. And I quit driving school bus. And that was a good job. It had retirement, it had, good wages and hours. And I like checking in people. I like, it was a nice job. And he was a wonderful manager. There's 3 of us that would. The rest of them we'd have to recruit or beg. But I tell them that. I says, I'll bail you out and I'll take care of whoever hurts you. But I do that with kids too. I've never been in jail, and I have a good record. I've been fingerprinted because that's what I was at CASA, and they have to fingerprint you. But they promised they'd throw them away afterwards, after they cleared you. But there are some things worth going to jail for. But I haven't had to shoot anybody. I don't even know how to shoot I don't even have a gun, so. Everybody talks to everybody. And we all got to be really good friends. We talk about what's going on. Some of them have sad stories, and you listen to them. Some of them, you just listen to each other. And when Curves closed, 10 of us said we can't lose each other. We were too close. And so we meet every month. If somebody has a birthday or not, and usually it's in my front yard because I have a big front yard and a picnic table. And sometimes we go to restaurants. And we just know each other so well, and we're so glad to have each other. And they keep you going. They keep you. You could message, I'm having a bad day, which none of us do, but you can tell if one of them's having a bad day. That's what friends know. They know how to read their friends. And some of them are have bed. Some of them have husbands who have dementia, and they're stressed, and you can tell when they're stressed. And when you call and say, they say, I'm fine, you say, cut out the I'm fine and tell me the truth. You know, that's how good of friends they are. You can say that. And um, you don't ever have to do anything bad, but you would if you had to. It seems like they won't let you get down. And they don't do it on purpose. Well, some morning you're sitting there and you think nothing, and then somebody will text you. There's a tree down there that has owls carved in it, and I think I can get you there by driving you. You won't have to walk. Can I pick you up in 10 minutes? Or another one says, let's go to breakfast. Or they say, let's go to lunch. It's just spur of the moment that you know you can text any one of them. And if you want to text the whole group, you say, do you want to meet at Cuthbert's for coffee? And you end up with a whole round table. That's what my picture, I think, is. No, that's in my yard. I have a picture in the round table at Cuthbert's, us all having coffee in the morning. They need you as much as you need them. And you all have something different to offer. They are good cooks. And so I fix the same thing every time we have our picnic. I have shrimp. That's funny after I said all that bad stuff, but I love shrimp. Took me a while to get back to it, but anyway, they all bring something. We sit there for 3 hours and talk. I would say listening, but I'm not good at that. I talk way more than anybody. No, there's one other one, but just caring about other people. I think everywhere they've been, I've felt that same thing at one time or another. I remember it. And I don't know, they're just good friends. Like, there was one or two that came and they just didn't fit in very well, and they knew it, and we knew it, and they just didn't come anymore. We're all stuck with each other, good or bad, and none of us are bad. Well, I sewed when I was a little kid. We had a treadle sewing machine. I had a white rat for a pet, and the rat was in the sewing machine drawer, and I was sewing, and I changed clothes. I go to the thrift store. I'd buy fabric. I changed clothes. And then when I went to high school, I took clothing, so I learned how to make patterns, and so I was really good at sewing. And so I sewed the kids' clothes, and I did have that job too. Anyway, when we moved from La Pine to Bend. My husband transferred to the Park Tumalo from La Pine, and we bought an old house, and they opened a fabric store, and I got a job there. And that's how I got into quilting. It's easier than making dresses and stuff. You don't have to fit them. One year I made 60 fleece jackets for everybody in the family. Had fleece jackets, really nice. I make professional looking stuff. I don't anymore, but I did. I guess I just somebody said there's a quilt in a day. That was a lie. But I thought, oh, that sounds great, a quilt in a day. There isn't a quilter alive that'll tell you can make a quilt in a day, but it was a fast one, and then Tripper on the World, and then I just went on to harder quilts, and it was artistic, and I can't draw, but I can quilt. That's my artist. Jennifer, I made her one of my first quilts, and I had made Jennifer dresses when she was little. I still had fabric. That's the thing about quilting, you use little pieces of fabric, and I save everything. I made her a quilt out of all the dresses that I'd ever made her. But I think I made them into hearts. And it meant something to her. She remembered the dresses by looking at the quilt. I had a bad experience with one of my grandson's girlfriends, and she was rude. And so I was visiting, I came home, and I thought, I do carry grudges, and I thought, don't carry a grudge because you love him so much, and you can't be mean, and she loves her. And I said, she was a Washington Redskins fan, and I made her a quilt. I thought, somebody says, what are you making? I said, I'm making a Washington Redskins quilt for a person I really don't like. And that was courage. I mean, who does that? That's a lot of work. But I thought it was the right thing to do. And because he was a Green Bay Packer fan, I had already given him one. And I sent it to her, and she sent me a thank you note. And I thought, that was the right thing to do. And that isn't, I don't always do the right thing. Sometimes I write people off. But I didn't write her off. We're still not friends, but she thanked me for the quilt. Oh, not avid. I'm a scatterbrain gardener. I just like what I like, I get. I don't have a system. When I lived in Kellogg Park, I bought a marigold. Marigold's my favorite flower in the whole world, which probably nobody else would ever say that. But I planted marigold and then I saved the seeds. The next year I had marigolds, and I saved seeds. I love planting a seed. I had avocado trees all over the place because I never had an avocado seed I didn't want to plant until they got so big and I couldn't bring them in and they froze. The last one was great, and I gave it to my son who lives in San Diego when he drove up. He's got a big avocado tree in his backyard now because of my avocado seed. I just love planting seeds, and I love watching stuff grow, and if I see something I like, I put it somewhere. Now I'm worried about the birds and the bees because I love animals, and so I plant pollinators, and I save. I've got, if you want zinnia seeds and marigolds and nasturtiums, and I try to save everything. It bothers me when plants die. So that's why I'm good at it, because I work at it, you know. If I go to a restaurant and there's a plant there, it doesn't look good, I put my finger in the dirt and I pour my water in there if it's dry. I think, why don't they water this thing, you know? But I don't say anything, I just take care of stuff. There. Anyway, my garden, but I have a sister-in-law who's a master gardener, and she's great at it. And I tell her, my garden, she says, your garden's great. And she is the nicest person in the world because it isn't great. But anyway, and I had chickens until the last one died too. Want me to tell you about my chickens? I love my chickens too. I just like them, and I like fresh eggs, and I like the chickens. And then somebody else, Jennifer, sold a house, and they were moving. They couldn't take all their chickens, so I took half of their chickens. And chickens, you know what they talk about, pecking order. Chickens do have a pecking order. The new chickens weren't welcomed by the old chickens. And finally I had one that survived. She'd been picked on, and she was the last survivor. And I talked to her like, you really got them. You know, you survived all those bad chickens. And I talk to chickens. I talk to the birds. I feed the birds. I love wildlife. I want, you know what I want done when I'm die, but they won't do it probably, is be dropped by a helicopter in the middle of the woods so I could be Thanksgiving dinner to something. Why not, you know? I eat them, they should eat me. You know, there's some religion that thinks you come back as an animal or something. So I'm really careful what I kill. I hope I don't come back as a slugger. Well, I don't kill spiders, but I do kill flies and slugs and ants. Okay, my dad. My dad was wonderful in his own way. He had culture. He grew up with culture. He took me to see some stage plays that made me love stage plays. He took me to the Portland Beaver baseball games. And when I listened to him. And I don't know how I got the Green Bay Packers. He liked the San Francisco 49ers because he knew John Brody's dad. I don't know why I love the Green Bay Packers. If I loved them, have they been around longer than me? They've been around a long time. I don't know, but anyway, that's always been the only team I ever loved was the Green Bay Packers. But I love baseball. We'd go to baseball games. They were cheap. When I was in high school, we'd skip school and go to baseball opening game. The school didn't get mad at you if you missed school on the opening day of baseball. And I like sports. Most of them. Some I don't like boxing. I don't like people beating crap out. But football's pretty rough too. But anyway, I love the Green Bay Packers. Always have. It was great. My son John, and my grandson Jerry, and my daughter Valerie, and I went. John bought us. I think John paid for most of the whole thing. We flew to Chicago, took tours of Chicago, which was a wonderful town too. I didn't have a good. You don't think of Chicago as a great city? It was. It was wonderful, and beautiful. And then we drove up to Lambeau Field. This was in the winter, and they were playing the Minnesota Vikings, who I don't like at all. And we toured the stadium. We had great seats. I loved it. I love Lambeau Field. That's another reason, not why I picked the Green Bay Packers, I don't think, but they're owned by the town, or by people, shareholders. You guys know people who own football teams. That's why I don't like the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the owner either. But I'm not a Texas fan either, but I'm not going to put down Texas on video. And the other day, I won't tell you this one on. I'll tell you it later. I said I was going to the bar to watch Green Bay Packers. That didn't work out so good. It cost me $30 because you can't sit at a restaurant and watch the game without ordering food.
Yeah.
Well, we could have got Netflix for $30 or Peacock or whatever has the Green Bay Packers on it, which we didn't. But the game was on last week. It was good.
Good.
I'm just curious about life, and I like everything. Kids, I'll sit in my window, and if there's a kid coming down the road, down the hill, on a scooter, I stand up and look out to make sure he makes it across that road okay, because I worry that the cars aren't going to stop for him. But I don't go out and yell at him, watch out for cars. You know, I haven't gone that far yet. But that would be the worst thing that could ever happen, is me seeing a kid get hit by a car. And kids sometimes don't look. I remember being a kid, and the cars go fast past my house now, and I'm thinking of going out and painting a big stop sign in the middle of the intersection or something. But everybody's got a camera, and they'll catch me. Do you think they put an 85 or 88-year-old woman in jail for doing that? Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. That's what my mother said, and that pretty much sums it up. You don't need laws, you wouldn't need religion if you just do what's right. Here we go again. You can't get, everybody's got a story, and everybody's got a reason, and you don't know what's going through. You can't say the reason they're homeless is because they're lazy. You've never walked in their shoes, and I believe everybody's got a story, and they all have. We shouldn't be judgmental. That's all. And I don't know everything, but if I want to know something, I look it up and find out. Now I don't remember it very much sometimes, but I still look things up if I'm curious about something. I have to. It's just I can't not know. If I have something going on in my head and I don't understand it. And I watch OPB. I watched a thing on the brain the other night. Have you ever seen a picture of the brain and all the little lights that? I tried to understand that. I didn't understand the thing, but I understood that they don't understand the brain either. And if they don't understand the brain, you don't understand people's brains or why they do things either. Did I say that?
You did.
Well, that's a good idea, but an asshole is not a good description of. You should be kind and not be judgmental. And, I don't know. If you expect good things, you get good things. Not always, but more than, if you expect bad things, it's bound to happen, you know? You need to roll with the punches, and adjust, and some people don't do that very well. I do it quite well. If I had 6 kids here and it's almost Halloween, I guarantee you those 6 kids would have a costume by Halloween, just out of junk I have. One of them would be a Green Bay football player. So. Well, my future's not real big. I mean, nobody in my family's lived to be 80, and I'm 88. So I must have done something right. And I think it was the fresh air. And I'm drinking out of the hose and eating strawberries that bugs might have crawled on. I've got 6 healthy kids that a lot of people I know have lost kids. And I'm not saying I did something right and they did something wrong. I'm just saying we must have done something right because I didn't lose any kids, but we've been lucky. We've been lucky, and think before you talk, maybe. That's something I'm not real good at, but if you have a good heart, you probably won't do bad things, and be kind. Put yourself in. I pick up hitchhikers. Do you know how many of my family tell me, don't pick up hitchhikers? I have had the nicest hitchhikers. Some of them I brought home for breakfast. But I was going to Ashland one time to Jennifer's graduation, and there was a guy. I had been in Bend doing something, and I saw this guy walking with a backpack. And then when I got to go to Ashland, I got out of Bend, and I saw him walking with a backpack. I thought, he can't be a bad guy. And I picked him up, and I drove him clear to Ashland. We talked the whole way. It was a great trip. I mean, being alone in a car is not fun. Having somebody to talk to, it's great. He wanted to fight fires. And there weren't any fires, but there were fires down Ashland. So he was one of these wild, these guys. And it was a great trip. When I went to San Diego or Los Angeles, when Jerry was born, I was going I-5 and I picked up a kid that was hitchhiking. He was just going home from school, and I tried to talk him into going to Los Angeles. I said, I'll take you to Disneyland. He says, no, I got to go home. I was kidding. I wasn't going to kidnap him, but I mean, and on the beach there always was hitchhikers, and they were great. I did have one I thought maybe I shouldn't have picked him up, but my Samoyed dog was sitting next to me, and he says, is that dog friendly? I says, don't touch it. That was the most friendly dog in the whole world, but I just knew maybe I should say don't touch it. Yeah. And my son hitchhiked home from college when he was at Oregon State. I was grateful for people who picked him up. And I've never had a bad hitchhiker. And it's nice. I like talking to people. And you get them in your car and they're just stuck talking to you, But nobody ever begged me to let them out either, so I must not have done too bad. If you don't agree and you have a fight, get over it and make up. Don't let it rot you out, and don't keep together. You belong together. I don't know. I've got so many good sayings in my books. I could pick one out, but it's probably Benjamin Franklin's or somebody else's. Actually, Winston Churchill had some good ones too, but. Just me, I'll say, I've seen families where they don't know where their kid is. He moved away and and I thought, don't do that. You raise a kid, you shouldn't be willing to let him go that fast, that easy. My mother. Did I ever tell you about the time I was in high school and she was mad at the whole family, which she had every right to be because they used her. She was wonderful, and when you're wonderful, people take advantage of you. She was mad. She went out the front door, and I thought, I can't let her go out that front door by herself. So I went out the front door. She walked to the bus stop, which was 3 blocks away. I walked to the bus stop. She got on the bus, and I got on the bus. She sat in the back, and I sat close to the front. And we went downtown. She got off the bus, and I got off the bus. And she says, well, shit, we might as well go to the movie. It was like, I wasn't going to let her do that, and she would have done that same thing. I've probably done quite a few. I did bet a guy I could get from Highway 26 to Wheeler in my 280Z in 15 minutes, and I did it. But I didn't think that was risky. I could handle that car. It had rack and pinion steering, and it was great. It was a really windy road. And he thought he could do it faster than me, and he didn't. But I don't feel like risky. I don't do risky things. Like, I don't want to go up in a hot air balloon. And that probably isn't risky, but I don't want to do that. It would be risky if I did it. But I don't do that. Well, I love my grandkids and all that, but seeing the Green Bay Packers, no, what makes me the most happy? The kids, any one of them, I just know them. I know their soul, I know their hearts, and they make me happy. If one of my grandkids walked in that door, that I'd be as happy as you'd ever see me. And any one of them. God, I've screwed up so much. Probably be an advocate. My granddaughter, Jacqueline. My granddaughter, Jacqueline. I expect she's up there on my picture. She is an amazing child. She lived with me for quite a while, and she's an amazing girl. Nice. And she's got my heart. I think she has. She would pick up a stray animal and take it home and nurse it. Like, some of them wouldn't touch a stray animal, but Jacqueline would. My favorite sandwiches are Reuben. I love seafood. My favorite meals are all seafood. And I love clam chowder. I like shrimp. I like lobster. I can't afford, but I had it twice in my life, and it was good. My favorite movie is Music Man. Or Fiddler on the Roof. I like the music. The Fiddler on the Roof, I like the singing and the dancing, and it's a sad story. And Music Man, I love music. I love music. I have a favorite song. Is I Can See Clearly Now. Johnny Nash. I've had bad times in my life, and I've turned the radio on, and that song's popped on, like, Mother, are you doing this? You know, that's my favorite song. Although I do sing to my dogs all the time. You are my sunshine, or I love you, a bushel and a peck, or whatever. Oh, that's an easy one. Kill a Mockingbird. It's got a good story. It's got a good lesson. Yeah. And I've given one to every one of my grandkids. I read this book. Read this book. The beach. I love the beach. I love it on stormy nights. I had a friend. On stormy nights, we'd go walk down the beach and pick up floats. That's when they did have real floats on the beach, and I still have them. She was a good friend, and I have good memories of that. And I love the beach in the summer. The kids love the beach. I love just sitting there. I want to remember me being kind, and I was kind, but not on purpose. It was easy for me to be kind. Some people it isn't, but you should try. My grandkids all know I love them. I don't think there's a one of them I have to apologize for anything to. I feel love from every one of them. It's not like, I didn't treat this one right or that one right. I did the best I could with all of them, and there isn't a one of them that isn't welcome here. And I partly raised several of them. And we had good time. And some of them that I'm the closest to, I was the toughest on. I had Jacqueline. I'll talk to you about Jacqueline. Wonderful Jacqueline. They're all wonderful. She gave me a little bit of a bad time a couple times but I outsmarted her. Jacqueline thought she was smarter than me when she was in kindergarten and first grade. No, Jacqueline, you didn't get away with that. But she is an amazing girl. She's an amazing girl. And I love her so much. And her brother, Stephen, who Jacqueline was real outgoing. Stephen didn't talk much. Jacqueline talked for Stephen. Stephen's an amazing man, amazing father. He's got 3 kids. Stephen never gave me, of all the grandchildren, Stephen never gave me 1 minute of trouble. If I said, let's look at this wheat and see how it's woven. You ever looked at wheat and see how it, he would stand there and look at it with me. When 9/11 happened at my house, his dad dropped the kids off and I walked him to school, and Stephen was still in kindergarten, I think. We went and got an American flag out of my back room and walked over to the park where they were making a memorial. I wanted him to remember that day, and I think he was just little, but I bet you he still remembers walking over to the park with the flag. I try to teach him loyalty and good stuff, and I did. And Stephen and Jacqueline are wonderful. All my grandkids are wonderful. I had good times with every one of my grandkids, and I want them to remember. I remember Jeff coming home after he graduated in my Jeep with his bicycle in the back to start his new adventure at Bend, because he lived in Tacoma. He worked at Costco, then he joined the Army, then he went back, and now he's a successful guy, but he remembers those things. Amy, she came to live with me part of the time. I made her prom dress. She had a job, she walked. Some of the other kids think Amy's got a big mouth. I think Amy's a perfect replica of me. So, I mean, I understand big mouths. And Amy has feelings and she says them, and she's wonderful. I want you all to know that every one of you is wonderful. There. That's going to make me really cry. They all are. I can tell you something wonderful about every one of them. Josh. Oh my God, that kid's crazy. He skipped school when he was in his 2nd grade, jumped over a fence and rode somebody's horse. And I don't let him forget that, but he says, well, you think I was bad. My kid, when he was 2, was on top of the refrigerator, climbed up on top of the refrigerator. I mean, I admire them for these crazy things they did. They were all wonderful. Jeff and Amy, the twins, were wonderful. They're just opposites, but... And I could tell you a story, but Jeff told me not to tell that story anymore. So, Jeff, I'm not telling that story anymore. But you know what story I'm talking about. And Jerry was one that lived with me. He was we had the Jeep. We did Ninja Turtles. And Bebop and Rocksteady were bad guys, and the Ninja Turtles. So Jerry and I would drive that Jeep, and I'd say, hey, I saw Bebop and Rocksteady. They went that way. And then he'd say, no, they went that way. And we'd run all over Bend chasing Bebop and Rocksteady. You got to get down to a kid's level. Quit expecting them to be adults and be a kid with them. That was fun. And then his little sister, Morgan, I made her every princess dress there was. She went to a birthday party one time, and she had a princess dress on from Shrek. I can't remember Shrek's princess's name, but anyway, the mothers came out and said, where did you get that princess dress? We can't find any. I said, I made it. She was the only girl that had that princess dress, because they had a princess party, so everybody was Cinderella or somebody. Morgan is so close to my heart. And then her little brother, Gus, who was wonderful. He broke the neck off my swan. He carried it in the house, and he broke the neck off, and I glued it together, and I still have it. And every time I look at that glue line, I think of Gus carrying that. He was only 2 years old in a diaper still, and walking in the house with the head of my ceramic goose. I have good memories, and I didn't get mad at him for that. You pick it up by the neck, it's going to break. You know? Maybe I have the mind of a child, I don't know, but I understand him. My doctor, I know all about his kids. He built a playhouse. He's got a 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old now, but she was when she was 2, she was the only one that wanted to play in his playhouse. He told me his daughter wanted to get a puppy, and I said, get her one. I get involved in people's lives, but I really care about them. It's not like I'm being nosy. My nurse sent me a picture of her and her son for Christmas. I want my family to know I love them, but my family knows I love them because I tell them every time I talk to them. And I really, really mean it. You know that. There. They do know it. If you ask any one of them, they'd all say, I think I'm her favorite.